He looked Solo Sikoa in the eye, cold, unflinching, devoid of all the brotherly warmth that once held the bloodline together, and said it plainly, "You're no longer my blood." The words cut deeper than any chair shot. Deeper than betrayal. Deeper than war, and just like that, the empire Roman Reigns once bled for, now burned under his heel. After months of eerie silence, no social media posts, no promos, no cryptic WWE updates, Roman Reigns returned. But not as the tribal chief we remembered. This Roman was colder. Sharper. Less ceremonial, more dangerous. And when he stepped onto SmackDown that night, he didn't come alone. He came with a shadow, a towering presence in all black, hooded, silent, standing behind Roman like a looming storm. No name. No introduction. No warning, just chaos. What followed was the kind of violence WWE hasn't seen in years. A carefully orchestrated destruction. Solo Sikoa and JC Mateo, once hailed as the future of the bloodline, were left broken in the center of the ring. Brutalized not just by fists, but by truth, because the message wasn't just physical. It was emotional. Symbolic. This was a cleansing, and it left fans, commentators, and even WWE management stunned. What happened to Roman Reigns? Where had he been? Why did he turn his back on his own family? And more chillingly, who was the enforcer at his side? This is the story WWE hoped you wouldn't hear. A story buried beneath locker room whispers, leaked audio, backstage power plays, and one man's mission to dismantle the very family he once built from scratch. This is No Longer My Blood, the exposé the WWE universe never expected, and it begins on a cold night in June. SmackDown had barely ended when internal WWE alerts went off. A black SUV was spotted pulling into the garage, not part of the broadcast, not part of talent transport. Inside that vehicle? Roman Reigns. The man who hadn't been seen since collapsing backstage after WrestleMania, who vanished amid rumors of betrayal, medical crises, and backstage heat, was now in the building, but he wasn't there to talk. He didn't stop at gorilla position. He didn't greet production. He didn't even look at Paul Heyman. Instead, he walked straight to the locker room where Solo Sikoa and JC Mateo were celebrating their latest ambush on Sami Zayn, and then, the camera feed cut out. It wasn't until a full hour later that grainy, leaked footage surfaced on Twitter. Roman Reigns, stepping through the smoke, flanked by a massive enforcer, delivering a devastating spear to JC Mateo and whispering something into Solo's ear before unleashing a barrage of fists that looked like revenge. Or regret. Or maybe both. WWE didn't comment. They couldn't, because they didn't know what to say. What followed was even more unsettling. Reigns took to the mic for the first time in nearly 4 months. Not in the ring, but through a leaked voice memo circulated anonymously across dirt sheets. "You think I've been quiet? I've been watching. I've seen how quickly blood turns to poison. Solo, you called yourself the head of the table? You sat on a throne built with my pain. Now you answer to me. And JC Mateo, kid, you backed the wrong bloodline." It was raw. Unfiltered. And it set WWE into total lockdown mode. Backstage producers were told to scrub Roman Reigns' name from upcoming scripts. Live commentary teams were given no-mention orders. Social media managers were instructed to halt any tribal chief-related engagement. Why? Because Roman Reigns wasn't playing the game anymore. He was rewriting the rulebook, and the first rule, blood doesn't make you family. Loyalty does. Sources inside WWE revealed that Roman's return wasn't sanctioned by Triple H or the creative team. It was forced. An ultimatum, even. One source, who asked to remain anonymous, said Roman threatened to appear live and unscripted unless WWE gave him 10 uninterrupted minutes of airtime on SmackDown. They gave him 5. He took 20. What he said that night will never be forgotten. He walked through the crowd, not from the entrance ramp, flanked by his mysterious enforcer, who towered behind him like a weaponized ghost. Roman's eyes were sunken. Focused. His hair tied back. No tribal lay. No we the ones. Just a mic and fury. He looked directly into the hard camera and said, "Solo, when I gave you the keys, I thought you'd drive the dynasty. You crashed it. You turned the table into a stage, my crown into a toy, my legacy into a gimmick. And you, JC Mateo, do you really think you earned your place? You were handed my seat because I wasn't here. Because I was healing. Because I trusted the ones I thought were my blood. That trust is gone. And then he turned his head, slowly, toward the entrance ramp. Bring him. The lights went out, the Tron flickered. Static, and when the lights returned, standing beside Roman Reigns was a man the WWE Universe couldn't believe, Jacob Fatu, the same man who had disappeared after WrestleMania. The same man Solo Sikoa had allegedly turned against in favor of JC Mateo. The same man who had stayed silent while Bloodline civil war erupted. He wasn't silent anymore. He wasn't loyal to Solo anymore. He was now Roman's enforcer, and he made that very clear as he savagely powerbombed Solo through the announce table, screaming, "You don't turn on family, unless family turns first." The crowd didn't know how to react. Some booed. Some cheered. All of them knew, something had shifted. This wasn't just about dominance, this was vengeance and the betrayal. It had layers no one saw coming. Backstage sources later confirmed that Roman's return had been in the works for weeks, not with WWE creative, but with WWE legal. He had demanded creative freedom in his contract revision. Clauses that would allow him to script his own arc, choose his own team, and control every single word he uttered on screen. Why? Because he was done playing the tribal chief. Now, he was the Bloodline judge, jury, and executioner, and the first trial, Solo Sikoa and JC Mateo. But there's more. According to leaked documents obtained by insiders, Roman had been keeping tabs on Solo's activities for months. Private investigators. Locker room spies. Even camera operators allegedly hired to film rehearsals and backstage interactions for insurance. And what he uncovered, a plot that went far beyond betrayal. Far beyond mutiny. Far beyond disrespect. Solo Sikoa, it turns out, had met with Paul Heyman in secret after WrestleMania. A meeting where Heyman allegedly encouraged Solo to declare himself the new tribal chief, while Roman was still in recovery. JC Mateo was present too, and the plan, to erase Roman's legacy altogether. To use the Bloodline name, without the man who created it. Roman learned everything, every whispered plan. Every manipulated promo. Every fake acknowledgement. And he bided his time. He healed. He waited. He returned, and when he did, he made one thing brutally clear: you don't get to be the tribal chief by stealing it. You earn it in war. That war has now begun, but this time, Roman isn't fighting for power, he's fighting for vengeance, and the WWE locker room has no idea what's coming next, because Jacob Fatu is just the beginning. There are whispers of a new faction forming under Roman's command. A darker, more violent bloodline. One that doesn't care about legacy or tradition, but about domination. And the locker room, they're terrified, because the man they once feared has returned without mercy, without forgiveness, and with a message written in pain: no longer my blood. Backstage, the silence was suffocating. Producers scrambled. Agents panicked. The production truck was locked down. Not because of a glitch, but because nobody could believe what they had just witnessed. Roman Reigns had taken over the show, not in the storyline sense, but in the real, no script, no warning, no mercy sense. And when Jacob Fatu stood next to him, dripping sweat and blood after destroying Solo Sikoa, one message echoed louder than anything else: this isn't the Bloodline anymore. This is something darker. Smarter. More brutal. Triple H was reportedly furious. Within minutes of the broadcast ending, he ordered an emergency meeting in the Stamford War Room, an off-the-books Zoom call involving key executives, creative leads, and legal counsel. One staffer present at that meeting described the tone as code red. Roman had gone rogue, but here's the catch: he hadn't broken any rules. His new contract, quietly renegotiated just weeks before WrestleMania, gave him final say on his storyline involvement, his opponents, and his segments. The language was airtight. And now WWE was facing the nightmare scenario. They couldn't stop Roman Reigns, they could only try to contain him. But how do you contain a man who built your most dominant faction in years, only to burn it down, member by member, the aftermath was immediate. Solo Sikoa was pulled from upcoming house shows. JC Mateo, rushed to a hospital after what was later confirmed to be a dislocated shoulder and internal bruising, was issued a no physical activity order by WWE doctors for at least 3 weeks, but the physical injuries were the least of WWE's problems. The real wound was trust. Roman Reigns had severed it, not just with his enemies, but with the entire creative hierarchy. And now? He was building something that no one could script. He wasn't just rebuilding the bloodline. He was building a new empire, and the rumors came fast. 3 names, whispers, code words: Jacob, Zilla, Tanga. Some claimed Roman had met with Zilla Fatu, the late Umaga's son, weeks before his return. Others swore they saw Roman at a private training facility in Orlando with Tanga Loa, the exiled former partner of Tama Tonga. And then there was the real scare, one that sent Triple H into near panic. Roman might be forming a bloodline splinter faction made entirely of the Inoue family's forgotten sons. The ones rejected, the ones discarded, the ones overlooked, while Solo Sikoa and JC Mateo were handed power they hadn't earned. They're not just a new bloodline, they're the ghost line. That's what one anonymous NXT coach allegedly called them. A whispered faction. Shadows of the dynasty. Men with nothing to lose and everything to prove, under Roman's iron command. And they're angry, because the throne was never meant for Solo. It was meant for warriors, for soldiers, for blood that bleeds for real, and that's exactly what Roman is assembling, a death squad of legacy. Paul Heyman knew it too. When asked for comment backstage that night, Heyman reportedly refused to speak to anyone. He left the building under security escort, clutching a briefcase and speaking in hushed tones into a private burner phone. What was in the briefcase? No one knows, but one theory from a close producer sent chills across the locker room: it's the original bloodline contract. Roman's terms. The Empire's blueprint. Because if that's true, if Heyman still has the power to manipulate the legal structure of the bloodline, then he might be the only one who can stop what's coming. But here's the twist: Roman doesn't want to be stopped. In fact, he wants Heyman to try. In the days following the attack, a leaked voice note surfaced online. It was short, quiet, and clearly recorded without Roman's knowledge. But the voice is unmistakable: if Paul Heyman thinks he can stop me, let him try. He forgot who built him. He forgot who gave him a table to sit at. Now I'll remind him, with fire. Those words weren't said in a promo, they weren't performed, they were whispered to someone behind a closed door. And now the WWE locker room knows the truth: this isn't a storyline. This is war. Jacob Fatu is just the beginning. And insiders say more are coming. In fact, another anonymous report suggests that Roman has been contacting exiled bloodline relatives currently working on the independent scene. One of them, believed to be Lance Inoue, was spotted entering WWE headquarters under a hoodie and hat. Why would a forgotten cousin visit corporate if not for something serious? Why now? Because Roman isn't just rebuilding. He's recruiting. He's building an army, and when the army's assembled, WWE won't be ready. Because while Solo Sikoa and JC Mateo believed they inherited a kingdom, what they really inherited was a graveyard. A graveyard Roman Reigns is now digging, brick by brick, and the gravestones, they bear their names. 3 nights after the ambush, Roman Reigns disappeared again. No social media. No backstage presence. No WWE security reports. He had re-entered the shadows. And that's where he does his most dangerous work. But his enforcer? Jacob Fatu, he remained visible. Deliberately, Fatu was spotted walking alone in the backstage corridors at a SmackDown taping, pacing in silence outside the Bloodline's former private dressing room. Solo Sikoa's name had already been scraped off the door, and inside the room, silence. Darkness, but the camera caught something: a folded piece of paper, taped to the mirror. 7 words written in thick, black ink: the ghost line is watching. Move carefully. It was a threat. A warning. A declaration, and for Solo Sikoa, it was personal. He tried to respond during that night's main event. Solo ambushed Jacob Fatu. It wasn't televised, it was backstage, away from fans, away from the spotlight. But sources say it was brutal. Solo, filled with rage and humiliation, caught Jacob between interviews and attacked with steel pipes and knee strikes. The hallway was stained with blood. the floor littered with broken crates. Crew members tried to stop him, they couldn't, but Solo made one mistake. He hesitated. He asked Fatu a question, "Why'd you choose him?" Jacob Fatu, even through bloodied lips, managed to laugh. "You think I chose Roman? He saved me." And then, the lights flickered. Security footage, later leaked online, shows a shadow stepping into frame. The same hooded figure we saw during Roman's return. Only this time, he raised his hand, pulled back the hood, and revealed his face. Zilla Fatu, the son of Amaga, the forgotten warrior. The man who had once sworn he'd never come to WWE unless it was under his terms, his family's terms. He stood beside Jacob and whispered, "This is my blood. You're just a placeholder." Then, the attack resumed. Zilla delivered a vicious superkick to Solo's jaw that sent him crashing into a metal barricade. Jacob, staggering but fueled by fury, lifted Solo into a Samoan drop onto concrete. The message was clear: this isn't about title belts. This isn't about brand supremacy. This is revenge. And the Ghost Line had just claimed another victim. But here's where the story takes a turn, because this alliance between Roman, Jacob, and Zilla, it wasn't forged overnight. It was forged in pain. A pain that traces all the way back to the night of WrestleMania, the night Roman collapsed backstage. For months, WWE tried to spin the story. Heat exhaustion. Stress. A minor cardiac episode that wasn't officially confirmed, but Jacob Fatu has now revealed the truth. In a deeply emotional confession, captured in a leaked locker room audio clip, Jacob sat alone after the beatdown and opened up to a staffer. Roman didn't collapse from the match. He collapsed from betrayal. He found out Solo was gonna cut him out before he even walked into the main event. Someone sent him a message. A copy of a voice memo. Solo and JC Mateo talking about how the old lion had to be put down. Roman read it. And still walked into that ring to defend a title, knowing his own family was plotting his end. The staffer reportedly stayed silent. And Jacob added one final, gut-wrenching line: "That man collapsed because he carried all of us. And when he needed us most, we dropped him." That was the moment Jacob turned, the moment he vowed to never betray Roman again, and when he told Zilla the truth, when he showed him the voice note, the surveillance footage, the real betrayal. Zilla made one call to Roman and said 7 words, "You ready to burn the name down?" Roman didn't answer. He just sent an address, a warehouse gym outside of San Jose, and there, under flickering fluorescent lights, the Ghost Line was born. But the question is, what now? If Jacob and Zilla are Roman's foot soldiers, who's the next recruit? Insiders are circling 2 names. The first, Tangaloa, recently released. Quiet. Waiting. His brother Tama Tonga was dismantled by Solo Sikoa months ago and mysteriously vanished. But sources say Roman has reached out, not to offer revenge, but redemption. "Join the real legacy," Roman allegedly told him. "Or die with the frauds." The second name, a wild card. A name so unthinkable it's causing panic inside WWE creative. Naomi, Jimmy Uso's wife. Jey Uso's sister-in-law. A woman who vanished from the Bloodline story during the Civil War, but has remained fiercely loyal behind the scenes. Insiders claim Roman sees her not as a side character, but as a symbol. A symbol of the family's pain, the first domino that Solo disrespected. The one JC Mateo mocked. And now, the one Roman might crown as the voice of his empire. If true, the Ghost Line won't just be male-dominated. It'll be a full-spectrum power play: man, woman, cousin, warrior, reclaiming the family name. And what happens when they're all in one place? That's what Triple H fears most, because when Roman Reigns returns again, it won't be with warnings. It'll be with orders, and the mission: erase the false bloodline. Rebuild the dynasty and make every betrayal pay, in blood. By the following week, WWE management was no longer scrambling. They were strategizing in fear. What started as a one-man return had evolved into a silent siege from within. The Ghost Line, Roman Reigns, Jacob Fatu, and Zilla Fatu, was no longer a rumor. It was a faction without mercy, operating outside the bounds of creative control, moving with precision, and picking off traitors like a hit squad. And the next name on their list? Paul Heyman, the special counsel, the wise man, the one man who knew Roman better than anyone, and yet allowed the bloodline to fall into enemy hands. Roman hadn't touched him yet, but everyone backstage knew it was coming. Triple H, now faced with the most volatile storyline in recent memory, called an emergency off-screen summit at WWE headquarters. It wasn't just writers this time. It was lawyers, security heads, travel coordinators, legal compliance officers. Because Roman's new contract gave him unprecedented control, and if he showed up to SmackDown again, they couldn't stop him. So Triple H initiated Operation Detour, a backdoor effort to distract Roman from launching a full-scale televised war. The plan: flood him with legal counters, hit his camp with performance review audits, delay or stall his travel clearances, restructure the booking in ways that forced him to reschedule. But there was a flaw: Roman wasn't waiting for their permission anymore. He was going live, with or without a script, and the WWE Universe had no idea what was about to hit them. The moment came on the following SmackDown. The show was billed as a contract signing between Solo Sikoa and Cody Rhodes for a SummerSlam rematch, but before the signing could begin, before the pen hit the paper, the arena lights dimmed, the Tron went black, static hissed, and then Roman Reigns appeared, not backstage, not in an arena, but in a dark warehouse lit only by fire. Behind him stood Jacob and Zilla, arms crossed, silent as statues. Roman stepped into frame, holding an envelope, and then he spoke. No music. No chants. No catchphrases, just this: Paul Heyman, I gave you everything. And you sold me out for fear. For weakness. For survival. You wanted a new tribal chief? Now you've got a warlord. And this, he held up the envelope, is your notice. The crowd in the arena was dead silent. Not booing. Not cheering, just frozen. Roman continued, inside this envelope is my final message to the bloodline. Not to the ones who betrayed me. Not to the cowards in creative. Not to the fans who picked a side. This is for you, Paul. Read it out loud on next week's SmackDown. Word for word. No edits. No tears. Or I release the truth. All of it. The camera zoomed in. Roman's eyes were fire. You wanted a legacy? Now choke on it. The screen cut to black. No logo. No signature. Just silence backstage. Chaos erupted. Paul Heyman, already seated at commentary for the contract signing, stood up and left immediately. He didn't speak. He didn't look back, but the damage had already been done. Roman Reigns had just declared a new rule: this isn't about family anymore. This is about truth, and now, the entire WWE roster was holding its breath, because no one knows what's in that envelope, but everyone agrees, whatever it is, it's dangerous. Some believe it's a list of names, those who conspired to strip Roman of his power after WrestleMania. Some say it's video footage of the night Solo and JC Mateo signed a secret agreement to form their own faction, with Heyman watching. Others whisper it's something even worse, something legal. A clause. A confession. A betrayal written in Paul Heyman's own hand. Whatever it is, Paul has 7 days. 7 days to speak. 7 days to comply. 7 days before Roman Reigns detonates the empire he once built, with a truth bomb no PR team can spin. Meanwhile, the locker room is beginning to fracture. Wrestlers are quietly taking sides. Some, like Jimmy Uso, have allegedly sent messages of support to Roman, privately, off-record, away from WWE's eyes. Others, like Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens, are warning management that Roman's chaos is contagious, that it's infecting the locker room and undermining leadership. There's even speculation that a second Ghost Line faction is forming, an international wing, with talks involving Hikuleo, Tonga Loa, and a Pacific champion still under NDA. And at the center of it all, Roman Reigns, not as the tribal chief, not as the head of the table, but as the man who warned everyone that family ends when loyalty ends. He came back not for the belt, not for revenge, but for correction. To wipe the slate. To burn the throne. To bury the imposters, and Paul Heyman, he has 1 week left to choose, confess, or be crushed. Friday night. SmackDown. The air inside the arena was electric, but not joyful, not like before. This wasn't anticipation. It was dread. The crowd knew what was coming. Paul Heyman was scheduled to open the show with Roman Reigns' letter. An ultimatum delivered by fire, and backstage, tension you could cut with a blade, producers whispered. Cameraman adjusted mic packs with shaky hands. Michael Cole stared into the monitor like he was watching a hostage video. At exactly 8:01 p.m. Paul Heyman stepped into the ring, but he wasn't holding a mic, he was holding the envelope, the same one Roman had shown on screen 7 days ago. He looked exhausted. Pale. Betrayed by sleep and sanity alike. And when the crowd started chanting Tribal Chief, Heyman did not respond. He slowly pulled out the letter. He unfolded it. He didn't speak with passion. He didn't shout. He didn't tremble. He read. To the ones who said nothing while I bled, this is for you. To the ones who used my collapse as a coronation, this is for you. To the ones who replaced my seat at the table with a plastic throne and a pawn for a prince, this is your reckoning. The crowd was dead silent. No chants. No interruptions, just raw shock. Heyman continued, I built the bloodline from my pain. My sacrifice. I turned family into power. And when I collapsed, you didn't carry me. You conspired. You whispered. You cheered. And you, Paul, Heyman's voice cracked here, you watched. You advised them to keep me buried. But you forgot the first rule of warfare. Never leave a king breathing. Because if he wakes up, he doesn't come back for the crown. He comes back for vengeance. Heyman stopped. He looked around, and for the first time in his career, he had no words of his own. The ring lights dimmed, the Tron flickered, and Roman Reigns appeared live via satellite. Jacob Fatu and Zilla stood behind him, arms crossed. Roman didn't smirk. He didn't shout. He simply said, you read it. That's your stay of execution. But know this. I'm not reclaiming my seat. I'm removing the table. Then the screen went dark and in the arena, all the lights cut out. The only thing visible, lit by a spotlight from above, was Paul Heyman, standing alone in the center of the ring. No protection. No allies, and from the darkness came a voice, not from the Tron. From the ramp, Jacob Fatu, it begins tonight. Backstage, cameras scrambled to follow the chaos. The ghost line, Roman's true bloodline, had arrived in the arena, not on the run sheet. Not in catering. Not in any of the producer notes. They were never booked. They were here to invade. Security was overwhelmed. Zilla Fatu stormed the hallway and found JC Mateo in physio. The scene was too violent for TV. Mateo's screams echoed through the corridor as Zilla screamed back, you earned nothing. You stole it all. Down the hallway, Jacob Fatu cornered Solo Sikoa in the locker room. No cameras. Just audio, but what was heard, one line, no more chiefs. Only monsters now. Then, crashing metal. Shattered glass. A thud and silence when the cameras cut back to the ring. Roman Reigns was walking down the ramp. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't here for ceremony. He entered the ring with Paul Heyman still frozen in place, and then Roman embraced him tightly, whispered something in his ear, and then looked him in the eyes and said, loud enough for the hard cam, thank you for showing them who you are. Then Roman dropped the mic. Heyman fell to his knees. Roman walked away. The message was clear. This wasn't about forgiveness. It was about ownership. Roman Reigns no longer wants to be acknowledged. He wants to be feared. He isn't building a faction. He's building a legacy immune to betrayal. A dynasty.